Have you ever scrolled through the news and just felt like you're getting whiplash? You know, one headline is screaming boom, and the very next one is screaming bust. It's chaotic, it feels contradictory, but what if it's all actually part of the same story? Today, we're going to take a look at a single day of news to try and piece this whole puzzle together. So what is the real story of the economy? Is it on a straight shot up, or is it headed for a nosedive? Well, here's the thing. The truth is, it might actually be both, at the exact same time. Think of it like the letter K. Some parts of the economy are shooting upwards, while other parts are definitely trending down. Let's follow the evidence and see what we find. Okay, so let's dive right in. On one side of the ledger, you have these incredible corporate success stories lighting up the market. Take Instacart, the grocery delivery giant. They didn't just beat their revenue estimates, they absolutely crushed them and gave this really rosy guidance. And the result? Their stock popped 14%. Investors were obviously thrilled. But then you see the flip side of that coin. A major tech player like Pinterest comes out, reports an earnings miss and some pretty weak guidance, and boom, its shares tank by 20%. This is actually the second quarter in a row this has happened, and it's really spooking investors, showing there's some real vulnerability out there. And you know, this exact same story is playing out in the food industry. McDonald's is seeing a massive surge. Their earnings beat expectations, mainly because they're attracting customers who are looking for more affordable options. In fact, one of their value promotions led to the single highest sales day in the company's entire history. Just think about that. And yet, here's the twist. The very success of a value-focused brand like McDonald's, well, it points to something deeper that's happening in all of our wallets. New data is revealing that while the rich might be spending freely, there's a growing financial strain on middle-income households, and it's changing how millions of Americans spend their money every day. So to really understand this contradiction, we have to start with the story of the American consumer, because it's right here in our household finances where the pressure is really building. And honestly, it helps explain everything else that we're seeing. And this is where the divide gets even more complex. See, it's not just a simple story of the rich versus the poor anymore. What the data shows is a growing gap in spending between higher income and middle income families. For a huge part of the country, affordability has become the name of the game. Now, this financial pressure isn't just a random market force. It's also being shaped by major policy changes happening in Washington. One of the biggest is the recent repeal of something called the EPA endangerment finding. This was a really key policy from 2009 that basically gave the government the authority to regulate emissions from things like cars and power plants. So without that finding, what does it mean for you? Well, experts are warning we could see long-term costs go up across the board. Think about it. Higher insurance premiums because of more extreme weather, rising healthcare costs from worse air quality, and maybe even more expensive food and electricity. It's a policy decision with direct, real-world consequences for your wallet. This growing pressure on the consumer, it translates directly to what we're seeing in the corporate world. It's creating this really clear and widening divide between the companies that are absolutely thriving and those that are getting left behind. And you can just see this split forming so clearly. On one side, you have companies offering value, like McDonald's, or convenience, like Instacart and Airbnb, and they're doing great. But on the other side, you've got companies like Popeyes, which saw its sales decline, and tech players like Pinterest, who are finding it much harder to connect with this new consumer mindset. The stock market is basically acting as a scoreboard for this whole trend. I mean, investors are pouring money into companies that seem to get the current consumer pressure while they're pulling back fast from those that seem out of touch. These numbers are a direct reflection of where people are choosing to spend their hard-earned money. But even within those struggling sectors, there is a fight going on. While some analysts are calling this a SaaS apocalypse that's being fueled by AI disruption, you've got established giants pushing back. The CEO of Amazon Web Services, Matt Garman, he argues that a lot of these fears are overblown and that the big players actually have an inside track to win. Okay, so now let's zoom out a bit, because these consumer and corporate trends, they are deeply, deeply intertwined with the policy battles and the power plays that are constantly happening in Washington. That EPA decision we talked about, it wasn't random at all. It was actually the result of a nearly 2-decade-long legal and political fight. It all started with a Supreme Court ruling way back in 2007. It became official policy under the Obama administration in 2009, and it was just recently repealed by the Trump administration in 2016. The administration framed this as a truly historic move. President Trump actually called the repeal the single largest deregulatory action in U.S. history and argued it was totally necessary to unleash fossil fuel production and get rid of the pressure on automakers to shift over to electric vehicles. But, as you can probably guess, critics see it very, very differently. Former President Obama argued the move makes the country less safe and less healthy, and the Sierra Club said it basically formalizes climate denialism as official government policy. So you have two starkly opposing views on a policy that is going to shape our economy for years to come. And while all these political battles are shaping our present, there's another force that's shaping our future, and maybe even widening that economic divide even further. And that is the massive, high-stakes bets being placed on disruptive technologies that could reshape our entire world. For instance, while some parts of the economy are showing a lot of strain, you've got investors pouring hundreds of millions of dollars into the next frontier. A company called Axiom Space just raised $350 million to build a commercial space station and to make NASA's next-generation moon suits. Wild, right? And then, of course, there's the fierce debate raging over artificial intelligence. For some people, it represents a SaaS apocalypse, a legitimate threat that could wipe out scores of established software companies. But for others, it's an unprecedented engine for growth, with companies like Anthropic closing these massive funding rounds. It is, at the exact same time, a source of incredible fear and immense opportunity. So, after piecing all of this together, the consumer strain, the corporate winners and losers, the policy battles, the disruptive tech, we're kind of back where we started. But now all those contradictory puzzle pieces are finally starting to form a much more coherent picture. So here's the crucial point, the main takeaway from all this. There is no single story. The economy today isn't a straight line up or a straight line down. It's a K-shape, a story of divergence where some people and some companies are on a sharp upward path, while others, at the very same time, are on a downward one. And all of this leaves us with a final, provocative thought. If a single 24-hour news cycle can contain stories of both record-breaking profits and real, deepening financial pain, which headline is the one that truly matters? And maybe more importantly, which branch of that K are you living on?